Hello YouTube, welcome to this Axis and Allies 1914 video. For this video, I wanted to take up a challenge, you might say, one of my commenters posted about shortly after my video about how Germany might take out France. They asked, well, what if Germany wanted to take out England early on in the game? And I thought to myself, that isn't really something that I've ever tried or seen anybody do or really heard a whole lot of talk about. In fact, historically, in World War II, there was talk about Operation Sea Lion, the German invasion of England. I don't know, from my historical studies, I'm not aware of any serious plan of Germany ever invading England in the First World War. But stranger things happen in board games sometimes, so I thought, why not give it a shot? It's something that certainly, if you're able to pull off, is likely to shock the British player and the Allies in general. And part of pulling this off is going to be the element of surprise, because if England can see it coming, then it's going to be a lot more difficult, if not impossible, to pull off. So if it's not even in their mind as a possibility, then that helps you. Plus, as we go through our second look at each of the countries, we're still on Germany, so it makes sense to do this video now rather than go through all the countries and then circle back around. Anyway, okay, let's get down to it. So, I've been thinking about what would it take for Germany to take out England. Well, there are two things that need to happen before there could be even a discussion about anything else. The first one is that we have to either take out the British Navy so it does not oppose us as Germany, or our fleet needs to be so overwhelming that it doesn't matter what England has. Now, because we will be very focused on land battle, even if we try to put up a defensive wall on the western and the eastern front, that's only going to last for so long. And England has a lot more freedom. It doesn't need to devote production to land forces if it doesn't want to. If it doesn't want to focus on the Ottomans, it can afford to just plop down a massive navy within a couple turns. So the strongest we're going to be from a naval perspective is probably going to be the first turn or two, and we need to use that to our advantage. So I would strongly recommend, if I want to go after England, of course, and really I'd recommend this regardless of the strategy, we've got to take out this navy here. This navy here, or this sea zone here, is the key to much of England. 3 territories over there. If we can't control that, then there's no point. And then if we can take out this other navy over here, which is also something I normally recommend, it just makes it a little bit harder for England to oppose us. Now, let's say we've taken out the British Navy. We are going to need transports. We have enough production, I believe. We can build quite a few transports, but the issue is going to be that our navy is going to be over here or further to the west. Normally, this Russian battleship, we don't have to worry about it. But the only place we can place naval units as Germany is up here in Sea Zone 11. We can't place undefended transports because, yeah, the Russian battleship will have to worry about those sea mines, but it can only be hit once, and then it's going to destroy all our transports. So we have to build some sort of a surface fleet there to deal with that, to hold the Russians at bay. And it can also help us if we build, let's say, just a battleship to even the odds, and with sea mines, the odds are slightly in our favor. We can also potentially get a coastal bombardment later when we land in England. So for purchases, I would recommend a battleship and then as many transports as you can get. I believe that is going to land you with 3 transports. Let's see, battleship is 12. Yeah, that puts you at 30, and you have a little bit of change left over. You can build like an infantry or something like that to go in Berlin. Now, this is going to be tricky, because even if the English player wasn't thinking that the British Isles were in danger, they see you put down a bunch of transports, they're going to be concerned about that. And Russia is going to, can potentially be thinking, oh, Germany really didn't buy any land forces at all. I'm going to take advantage of the situation and attack. We need to deal with both of those things if we want any chance of this working. So what I recommend, granted we aren't going to have new units, or very many new units to put in Berlin because of our naval buildup, I strongly recommend moving our troops around as if we are pursuing the Russia first strategy. It is the most common strategy from what I've seen. It's the one the Allies are going to be expecting, and there's another reason that I'll get into here momentarily. But on the Western Front, take Belgium. I mean, it really doesn't make sense to not take it on the first turn, and then move some of your units over here this way just to shore up this front. We're going to basically be trying to create a western wall over there just like we would if we were doing a Russia first strategy. Over on the Eastern Front, we aren't going to have reinforcements in Berlin, but we're going to want to move our forces as if we were going Russia first. So that's going to mean potentially an attack on Poland, depending on what it looks like, and potentially moves into Galicia down here to fortify that territory for Austria, with the hope that despite our naval buildup, Russia still feels that on its first turn, or maybe its second turn as well, oh, it needs to pull back into Poland and Ukraine and fortify there, not realizing that our true intentions are to the west. Now, there's a second reason that we want to do that, and this is going to come into play. This is not really a units dice production strategy. This is more of a psychological strategy. It is going to be greatly to your benefit as you're moving these forces, over here against Russia. Play up the fact that, okay, Russia, you're going to fortify Poland, you're going to fortify Ukraine like you always normally do. Well, I, as Germany, I'm going to build a bunch of transports up here, and I'm going to open up a second, and I've got a battleship, I can take you out, I can move these ships over here. Eventually, I'm going to take you out, I'm going to open up a second front in Livonia or even Karelia, both of which border Moscow. You're now going to have to, it's going to force you to pull troops away from Poland, and then I'm going to march in here. So I'm just going to open up another front. You think you're safe, Russia? No, you're not. I'm going to use these transports, using my coastal bombardments, to move up north. The goal with that is to do two things. First, it is to, again, make Russia hesitate so that it doesn't take advantage of our the weakened state of our land forces around here because we built all navy. The second piece is to lull England into a false sense of security. Make them think, okay, yeah, Germany built navy, but Germany would never go after England. That's too unorthodox. Oh, you can see by their land movements. Clearly, they're focused on Russia. They're coordinating with Austria over here. Obviously, that's what they're going to do. When in reality, we're going to turn around on our turn, and we're going to attack England on turn 2, assuming England is open. Now, if England doesn't fall for it, we can, of course, open up that second front against Russia. I don't think that is, the greatest. I mean, it's certainly not a terrible move. Now that we've got the navy, we might as well use it for something. But we can't do an amphibious assault on Poland if there's a lot of artillery there. I mean, we can, but we're going to take massive casualties. If we attack the Russian navy up here, it's our battleship versus their battleship, at least on turn 2, because the navy that we moved over here on turn 1 is too far away to get in and help. So the odds are slightly in their favor with those sea mines. But that is something that we could do, maybe on turn 3. And if we have forced them to pull units away from Poland, and that makes Poland weaker, and then we can move in, then we may see some advantage there. But really what we are really hoping to have happen is to worry Russia, get Russia to either stay stationary, try and build a wall and not move forward, or maybe pull out up to Livonia, making its front over here a little bit weaker, which will help us because we're weaker also, and lull England to a false sense of security. Now, ultimately, what we end up doing, assuming that works, is going to depend on England's troop placement. No matter what, we're going to have to deal with the sea mines over here. We can't get around that unless we try and go over the top, which we could potentially hit up Scotland. So if we have to do that, we can, but that isn't really an optimal choice because that gives away the element of surprise and doesn't really knock England down into economic or political collapse before it has a chance to respond. So there are a couple things that we will want to look at. First things first, we'll have 3 transports, so there's 6 guys we can drop off, 2 coastal bombardments, assuming that England doesn't have a navy here that requires our surface fleet to mess with it. If you can land your troops in London and survive 1 round of combat, do it. Now run the calculations or look really closely if you need to, but if you can do it, do it. And the reason is England has very few core territories, which means if it loses or has contested 5 productions worth, it goes into economic collapse. London is worth 6 production. If you can contest that, England can't build any new units. And maybe it has some other units off somewhere else, and maybe it counterattacks on its next turn and takes it. But remember, that means that they built nothing on their turn, and they over here, and they built nothing over to fight the Ottomans. And you have your 3 transports. You can pick up another 6 guys and move them over. England is in serious trouble if that happens. Now, you have to make sure that your units are well positioned too, because your transports are only going to get 2 movement. When you move out of Sea Zone 11 with tournament rules, because there's a harbor there, you'll be able to move 3 spaces. Really, you only need 2 spaces to get over to the British coast over here. But once you're there, you'll only have your 2 movement. 1 move over here, 1 move back. So you have to make sure that you have enough guys in Kiel up here to the north and in Belgium. It's best if you have them in Belgium, because that means that your transports aren't going to have to leave this mine territory and come back. You won't risk hitting sea mines and losing your transports. But if you have units in Kiel, you can go back and retrieve them if you need to. But of course, if you're taking units away from Belgium, you're going to need to get new units into there to make sure that France doesn't take advantage of that situation. Now let's say that you can't take England on your turn, but you've got your 3 transports over here. Now, depending on how risky you want to be, but if you're going after England, I'm going to assume that you are wanting to be fairly risky. Consider this. England would have put all of its new units on London. That's probably going to be the most heavily defended. Well, what can you do about it? Well, if you move 1 transport here, that's 1, 2 spaces, drop off in Yorkshire, now you've sealed off Scotland. England can't get to Scotland without going through Yorkshire if it doesn't have any units in Scotland right now. You can move a 2nd transport, 1, 2, 3, up to Scotland, take out another 2 production, so that's 4 total. So not enough to cause economic or political collapse at this point. But wait a second. Got your 3rd transport, and this is the riskiest move. 1, 2, 3. You have to survive 2 sea mines here, or 2 mine zones, but if you drop off in Wales as well, and this assumes that you're able to take or contest all these territories, suddenly England is down 7 production of core territories. Suddenly, England suffers not economic collapse, which means it can't build anything or collect money but still move its units. Down 7, England suffers political collapse. England is out of the game at that point. There are a lot of things that have to go your way to make that happen, and you have to survive. One transport has to make it through 2 mined territories, and there can be no British ships in the way, so I mean, that is asking for a lot, but on turn 2, Germany could potentially knock England out of the game completely. And what does that mean? So that means that now, Germany, yes, severely weakened because it didn't build land forces, but now England's out of the game. So England's not going to be fortifying France. England's not going to be fortifying Russia. The Ottomans really don't have to worry about any major threat coming from that direction. They're going to be focused on Russia with the Ottomans, or with the Austrians. So I don't know. I mean, that's something that is extremely risky, and if it doesn't work, and now Germany spent a bunch of money on a navy that it really can be minorly effective, but not nearly as effective as land forces would have been. But if you manage to pull it off, wow. I mean, the Allies probably should just surrender at that point. The more I look at this and consider what the possibilities are. And because this is possible because of the tournament rules allow us to get that extra move with the transport because it started up here in a friendly harbor. Otherwise, we would not be able to do that. So it's just, it's pretty crazy when you think about it. So if I were going to try a take out England first strategy as Germany, Germany's the only central power that's really in any position to even try it. Like I said, it's extremely risky, and if things do not go your way, this game is going to probably go very, very poorly for the central powers after the first couple turns. And it requires not just okay rolls, it requires a little bit of subterfuge on your part, trying to lull England to a false sense of security, trying to get Russia to believe that it is the primary target of your navy, and keep it from pressing on you while you gear up for your British invasion. So I hope you enjoyed this video. It's very unorthodox. If any of you have the chance to try this strategy, I'd be very interested to see how it works out in practice. I've never tried this before. I just kind of came up with it today. I'm just kind of doing these videos rapid fire this weekend, just because everything, we're focused on Germany, and I've got had a couple questions come in about, well, can you do this with Germany? Can you do that with Germany? And so while it's still fresh in my mind, I just wanted to get through these. So I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope this is helpful to all of you, and I'll hopefully get another video posted soon.